You're watching Alabama football on YouTube. This is Alabama Crimson Tide Recruiting. Trey Yanity joined with 18-year veteran, best-selling author Andrew Bone. Guys, find him on Twitter at Andrew J. Bone. As we go, of course, visits, throughout these weeks here in May as well. The transfer portal still active to an extent. And Bone, that's where I want to start tonight. We're going to get into Jordan Addison here, the hot name in the transfer portal, the wide receiver from Pittsburgh. Shown some interest in Southern California. I know he was working out with Bryce Young earlier this week as well. How are you doing tonight, Bone? And what do we need to know about Jordan Addison?
Doing good, doing real good. Of course, last week we were talking. We had a little had some sickness in the house, but everybody's good now. But yeah, let's get into it. I mean, let's talk about Jordan Addison because that's the hot topic of the day. I think Bruce Feldman was the one who reported from the Athletic that he'd been working out with Bryce Young. Of course, that took off and everybody ran with it and everybody created a story out of it. Probably didn't have to write a story about it because the thing is Bryce works out with a lot of guys. When he goes back home to California, I mean, he's constantly training, constantly, working with trainers out there, and constantly working with receivers. If you're an elite receiver, you want to go out there and throw with Bryce Young, especially if you're out in LA during that time. So I think that's really what it was. I don't really see it as anything more than that right now. Could that change? Possibly. But I've talked to enough people over the course of the last 24 hours, people close to Bryce Young, people close to the Alabama football program who, strongly indicated that the connection there with Bryce and Jordan Addison throwing with each other, working out with each other, really doesn't have any indication that he's leaning towards Alabama or potentially even visiting Alabama. May not even visit Alabama. He's out in LA. There's all sorts of talk that he's going to join USC and potentially for a good amount of money if that's the case. So we'll see what happens with Jordan. See if he decides to maybe take a step back, maybe take some visits before making a decision. But I think all signs point to USC there. I don't know if these stories that are being created right now is gonna make it look bad on Alabama because people are going to say, "Oh, USC stole him from Alabama." I don't necessarily think that's really going to be the case. I mean, this is a guy that has been talked about in the media over the course of the last week as having a pretty sweet deal out at USC if that's going to be the case. Yeah, I just don't see him joining Alabama's class right now. We'll see if he ends up making a visit. And even if he does make a visit, that's not a guarantee that he's going to join Alabama's class. And Alabama's not necessarily out there looking for another wide receiver. They've already, added two with Tyler Harrell and also Jermaine Burton. Obviously, Burton's already there, he went through spring practice, had a great spring, and Harrell will be there here in the next few weeks. So they're not actively out there looking for another receiver, but you've got the Biletnikoff Award winner in the transfer portal, a guy who had over 1,500 yards receiving last season. You're going to be interested in that type of player. I don't care who you are. I don't care really who's on your roster. Alabama or any top programs in the country are going to go after this guy and try to get him on campus for a visit. So just because there's interest there doesn't necessarily mean that he has high interest and he's going to sign with Alabama. And just because he's working out with Bryce Young, that doesn't indicate that at all as well. So I know Alabama fans are getting excited about it, and I don't want to burst your bubble too much because you never know. He may still visit, but I'm not on the same wavelength as some in terms of Alabama's going to have a good chance at getting this guy on board because I do think that all signs point to USC. That's been the heavy favorite since the news kind of broke last week. Yeah, he worked out with Bryce. That's great. Alabama's interested. That's great. But as far as him joining Alabama's class, I think we're a good bit of ways from that potentially happening. Now, if he ends up deciding to take a visit, hey, maybe things happen. But until that time, we're just going to assume that USC is in the driver's seat. There's no visit plans right now for him to visit Alabama. But I'm sure there's plenty of people ready to write those stories that Jordan Addison chose USC over Alabama whenever that time does come. But I don't really see that as necessarily being the case whenever he does make that decision.
Yeah, Jordan Addison, really the first NIL free agent, if you want to look at it like that. The Blitnikoff winner, like you said, making his visits there out to USC in Los Angeles. I'm with you, Bone. I think, it's a simple game of catch. It's simple workouts. You see this all the time in the offseason with guys that, enjoy working out together. Maybe they don't necessarily, want to transfer to the same school every time. And I'm with you there as well. This is not a recruiting battle, guys. This is Jordan Addison, just making a visit to California, meeting up with his friend Bryce Young. Like you said, if we'll see that visit to Tuscaloosa, maybe that changes things. But some guys do have visits scheduled to Tuscaloosa with Nick Saban. Two big Georgia guys we've talked about quite a bit, Justice Haynes and Caleb Downs. Know these guys have their visits scheduled, but as we look into the next month, who are some other big names that are scheduling up visits with the Crimson Tide?
Yeah, there's 10 recruits that we know about who have scheduled official visits for Alabama in the month of June. We're starting to see guys announce their official visit schedule. We're starting to see them trim down their list of favorites. What we didn't see, in the last 2 years, we didn't see kids on campus until the summer. You had a chance to, kids have had a chance to go to junior days. They've had a chance to go to spring practices, spring games. So they've had a chance to go to a lot of different schools over the course of the last year, because a lot of them went to summer camps last summer, and obviously went to a lot of games during the fall. So they didn't get a chance to do that the last 2 years. So you're starting to see kids narrow down their lists, set up official visits, because a lot of these guys want to make their decisions before the start of their senior season so they can give complete focus to their team and finishing out their high school careers. But we are starting to see more guys schedule their officials in the month of June. And as you mentioned, Caleb Downs and Justice Haynes, two of the very best prospects in the country, both from the state of Georgia. Caleb Downs, the number one safety in the country, is going to visit Alabama on June the 17th. I think it's June the 17th. Yeah, that's right, June the 17th. And then and then Justice Haynes also visiting Alabama on June the 17th. So both recruits visiting the Crimson Tide on the same weekend from the state of Georgia. Justice Haynes, the number one running back in the country, according to Rivals.com, is a Georgia legacy. So it's going to be kind of tough for Alabama to pull in and get him away from the Bulldogs. But him visiting, you always got a chance. So we'll see what happens. I know he really likes the Alabama coaching staff, led by Robert Gillespie, Travaris Robinson, who've been recruiting him for a very long time. So we'll see what happens when he visits the Crimson Tide next month. But as of right now, still leaning towards Georgia. Now, as far as Caleb Downs is concerned, I do think it's an Alabama-Georgia battle for him. Other schools are in it. Ohio State very strongly in the mix, but in the end, I think he ends up choosing between Alabama and Georgia. There's some talk that Alabama may be in the lead right now, but I don't know if I want to be in the lead. I don't know if you want to be in the lead during the spring. You want to be in the lead after the official visits. So he's going to visit Alabama, visit Georgia, visit Ohio State, visit some other schools in the month of June, and then make that decision. But we're going to see plenty of prospects in town in June. Anthony Hill, the number one inside linebacker in the country out of Texas, he's going to be making a trip to Alabama on June the 10th. Olas Alinen, the Finland-born offensive lineman who's currently at boarding school in Connecticut, he is going to make that official visit on June the 10th as well, along with another big offensive lineman, Wilkin Formby, out of Tuscaloosa. He's going to make his official visit that same weekend. You also have Raul Aguirre, who is going to be making his trip to Tuscaloosa on June the 10th, one of the best inside linebackers in the country out of the state of Georgia. So we're going to see a lot more official visits. Kelby Collins out of Gardendale told me on Tuesday night that he's already scheduled his official visit date with the Crimson Tide, but he's going to announce it on his own. I'm not sure when he's going to announce it. He says he's going to wait and announce it via social media over the course of the next few days. So we'll wait and see. But yeah, we should see a lot more official visits scheduled over the course of the next few weeks leading up to the start of the summer.
It's going to be really fun to follow these visits, guys. And like I said, be sure to follow Andrew on Twitter at AndrewJBone to stay in the know with all those visits, everything coming up. Keep hitting that like button as we get into the show tonight and continue to leave comments for us. We love hearing from you guys. Love being, able to interact on shows like this. So get in the comments and, help our channel continue to grow as well. Alabama recruiting several guys that are committed elsewhere at this point. Ole Miss linebacker in the top 100 for Rivals, Suntarine Perkins, guy that the Crimson Tide gave a visit to last week. Do you see him scheduling a visit with Alabama at any point this summer?
Yeah, absolutely. This is another outstanding linebacker target for Alabama. He has been on the Alabama recruiting board for a while now. Received an offer back in the early, I guess it was before the spring. I think it was back in maybe February. He ends up visiting Alabama in March. There's definitely a lot of interest there. Coaching staff, Pete Golding visited him last week. So there is strong interest there. And then he posted a photo on social media the other day of him in an Alabama uniform during his junior day visit. But yeah, I talked to Suntarine the other day. He said that he's definitely planning on visiting Alabama this summer. Doesn't have anything scheduled right now. Still trying to kind of work on his official visit. Had a great phone conversation with Nick Saban last week. Said that things went really well. Coach Saban talked to him about playing linebacker, but also playing running back. Mentioned playing running back, but I think he's definitely a linebacker at the next level. I think Coach Saban was just sees him as one of the best athletes in the country, and telling him, hey, you can play on either side of the ball in Tuscaloosa, but always tough to get those kids out of Mississippi. We've seen that for a long time. Alabama, landed a big one last year in Jaheim Otis, and certainly would love to add another one. And this is certainly a guy that they're heavily targeting, that they would love to add. And obviously, their success on the defensive side of the ball, especially at the linebacker position, all the kids know about it. So I think Alabama just has to continue to chip away here, get them in for a visit, and kind of see what happens. But obviously, Lane Kiffin, that staff, they're not going to let him go away too easily. And there's a lot of kids out there that are committed to other programs that are going to visit Alabama throughout the course of the summer. We're going to see kids that are going to visit Alabama that are committed that we're not even talking about yet. Last summer, Aaron Anderson was an LSU commitment. Nobody on the Alabama recruiting beat was talking about Aaron Anderson prior to the summer. We started talking about him when he set up that first official visit to Alabama, but we weren't talking about him. There's other kids that are out there that are committed elsewhere, that are going to visit Alabama, that are going to earn offers from Alabama during the summer. Some may already have offers, and we're going to see some flips. Flips happen every single year to and from Alabama. So, don't be discouraged when somebody flips from Alabama, because it's going to happen. It happens just about every single season, but every single year. But we also see a lot of kids end up flipping from their programs to Alabama, or they decommit and then they commit to Alabama maybe a few weeks or a few months later. So you got to continue to recruit these guys. Once a kid commits to a program, some of them are going to say, hey, don't call me. I'm 100% committed. But some guys, a lot of guys, are going to continue to talk, continue to let these coaches recruit them, because you never know what's going to happen all the way until the end. There's so many things that can happen, throughout a recruiting process. We saw that a few years ago with Jaden Roberts when he flipped from Auburn to Alabama during that early signing period. And a lot of that had to do with the coaching change at Auburn. So you have to wait and see what coaching changes are going to happen during the season, because there's always going to be a prospect or two that's going to be out there, that's going to be on the fence. When a coaching change happens, they're back open on the open market. We saw that last year with Jahai Campbell when Brent Venables left Clemson, went to Oklahoma. Boom! All of a sudden, he was open for other schools to recruit him, and it took one visit to Alabama and committed to the Tide. So things like that are going to happen, and I think that's kind of why you always have to save some room in the end, because some elite guys are going to pop up in December.
Yeah, truly not over until it's over with a lot of these guys, like you said there. So, got to keep pushing for guys like Suntarine Perkins. Guy Alabama's been pushing hard for quite some time. Malik Bryant, the top outside linebacker in this class, named his top 5. He's got Alabama, Miami, Florida, Central Florida, and Southern California. Obviously, wanting to play down in some sunshine wherever he ends up. But were there any surprises on this list for you? And where do you think Alabama stands out of these 5 schools?
I was a little surprised Georgia didn't make the cut. He had talked about Georgia pretty heavily for a long time. I don't know, what the situation is there, but it was a little surprised they weren't on sitting there as a finalist. But yeah, I do think Alabama's in really good position. I think they're heading into the summer at the top of the list for Malik Bryant. But as we all know, things can change pretty quickly, especially with official visits, and now with all the NIL stuff, you just never know how things are going to unfold. He's currently scheduled to announce a decision on July the 23rd. So he's going to try to take all these official visits in the month of June. Certainly expect him back in Tuscaloosa, but was not surprised, to see Alabama make that list. I guess, the one school that, people probably look at that top five, they see UCF. Hey, you know what? It's an Orlando kid. He's given some love to his hometown, and they've probably been recruiting him for the last 3 years. So I don't think you can fault him for visiting UCF. You never know; they may can sneak in there and steal him away. But I do think, as of right now, I would say it's probably more of an Alabama-Florida recruiting battle for Malik Bryant. And I would say I'd throw Miami in there too.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult to have these Miami recruiting battles at this point now with Mario Cristobal down there. But hey, 2017 UCF the national champions. I'm not sure if you've heard about it, so maybe they can swing them there with the hometown recruit. Talk about some big visits coming up. I know you mentioned guys like Caleb Downs, Kelby Collins that they've been pushing for hard. Hakeem Williams, another big visit. Scheduled with the Alabama coaches. I know they're going to be on the road to see guys like Eli Holstein as well here. So we kind of shift to even some of these 2024 guys. Nigel Smith, the quarterback recruit, and CJ Carr as well, along with defensive lineman Champ Thompson. All guys that I know, have visits coming up here soon. Talk about some of these guys and, where they stand with Alabama at this point.
Yeah, and as we've been following along throughout the entire spring, a lot of spring visits in terms of spring evaluations. So Alabama coaches are on the road, and I've said this before, but they're not just out there visiting guys that are priority targets. They're out there evaluating guys who may be committed to smaller schools. And I'll say a kid might be committed to Tulane right now, and this is just an example, but they're still going to go see him because they don't want to miss anything. If this kid can play and they're better than, some of these five-star kids that are on the recruiting board right now, they're going to offer them. They're going to take them. They're going to, try to get them on campus for camp this summer. So we've seen a lot of offers that have been extended over the course of the last few weeks since spring evaluation started. Now, the majority of these offers are, we want to see in camp. You can't commit until you work out in front of Coach Saban. Can't get that green light. So a lot of them are getting the green light from these assistant coaches, but not necessarily Coach Saban just yet. So I do think we're going to see a lot of kids come to camp. A lot of kids earn that green light to commit, guys that we're not talking about on the top of Alabama's recruiting board just yet. But we have seen Alabama go out on the road this week. Seen some top end guys that are on the recruiting board, as you mentioned. Hakeem Williams received a visit from Alabama yesterday. Kelby Collins, one of the top defensive linemen in the country from Gardendale, had Alabama at his practice yesterday. Eli Holstein, today's Wednesday, so Eli Holstein had a visit from Alabama today. So a lot of different kids, seeing a lot of coaches. Caleb Downs, saw Travaris Robinson at his school today. So some big visits. It's going to continue kind of throughout the rest of the spring. We've seen a lot of offers that have been extended, as you mentioned earlier. Jakeem Jackson out of Florida received an offer from Alabama yesterday. He's planning on visiting Tuscaloosa sometime in June. CJ Carr, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, out of Michigan, actually the grandson former Michigan head coach Lloyd Carr. So it might be pretty tough to get him away from Ann Arbor, but we'll see if he makes a trip down to Tuscaloosa sometime this summer. But certainly one of the best quarterbacks in that 2024 recruiting class. But yeah, it's going to continue to be busy throughout the spring with offers, with visits, with these evaluations, and we're going to stay pretty busy over the course of the next few weeks leading up into the really busy part of the recruiting season once we kind of get into the summer with camp season, so many different camps, cookouts, official visits, and it's going to be pretty busy, and we're kind of just gearing up, getting everybody ready for it right now.
It is going to get crazy, guys, but we embrace the madness here because it means that we can provide you the best coverage in Alabama football recruiting. So we need you to hit that like button as we get out of here tonight. Need you to get in the comments one more time for me. Like I said at the top of the show, guys, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please do that. Hit that bell so you can get notified when we post videos just like this and everything else covering Alabama football. Bone, as we close it down tonight on this first May show of our recruiting season this year. just kind of wrap it up, talk about what's coming up these next few weeks for you on the website, and anything else you got going on.
Yeah, I mean, we're just going to continue to have a lot of content, based on, kids that are getting visited by the Alabama coaching staff, kids that are getting, that are setting up official visits to Alabama this summer. I think there's going to be a little bit of a break for the Alabama coaches and players, right before summer one starts. So maybe we'll get a little bit of a break during the Memorial Day weekend, but heading into the summer, it's going to be pretty busy. Now, I don't really expect any commitments to happen over the course of the next few weeks, but once we kind of get into June, these official visits start happening, then that's when you're going to start seeing a lot of commitments take place. So it's going to be pretty busy a couple months leading up, and I hope you all continue to follow us.
Yeah, guys, one more time for you at Andrew J. Bone on Twitter if you've not followed him already. Thank you so much for joining us again this week, guys. Check out the rest of our page while you're here. And again, please subscribe to our channel for all the latest in Alabama football news. For Andrew Bone, my name is Trey Hannity. This has been Alabama Crimson Tide football recruiting on Alabama Football YouTube. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. Roll Tide.